Chapter 31. The enemies of outer space were not aware of Suho's existence until now. However, if one day they eventually found out that the Shadow Monarch had a son, Suho would literally be the only weakness that would change the game of war. Just taking him as a hostage can make Sung Jinwoo's forces slow down, so Suho had to be strong. After all, it's just a matter leveling up. Suho looked back at the Shadow Dungeon. The daily quest was over, but he thought it would be better to hunt more goblins. Besides, the contents of the hidden quest hunting was more than the prescribed amount. Maybe this was the direction the system wanted him to go in the first place. Gray shook his head at Suho's words. Esil, yeah? Suho smiled at Gray and Esil. If you ate everything, shouldn't you pay for the meal now? Gray, who couldn't even eat a whole pig, made an unfair expression. But for him, it was more helpful for him to grow by hunting and eating the prey himself. You have killed a goblin shaman. You have killed a goblin archer. Your level increased. For a while, Suho went around the Shadow Dungeon with Esil and Gray and defeated the goblins. Gray was weak, but he had an excellent sense of smell, befitting a hunter's clan. He could find the smell of goblins hiding everywhere. Esil, on the other hand, was a master of spearmanship. No matter how weakened the demon noble was, the goblins were nothing compared to her. She inserted her hand into the goblin's body and sucked out its mana like a snack. Yuck, it doesn't taste good. She ate with her bare hands, so she thought it would taste better. She then brushed her nails instead of her teeth. Anyway, it's very interesting. A demon. Esil frowned and tilted her head. For some reason, Suho was looking at her like a strange animal. After some time, there are no more goblins in this area. I guess we killed them all. I can't see any either. Suho also stopped walking and put the sword down. Rakan's sword rose in the air with the ruler's power. On top of the handle, Baru flew like a sparrow and landed on it. Young master, I went around and it seems like you have really killed them all. Great job. What are you going to do now? We have to wait here until they regen again. Suho took a seat in an empty lot, open on all sides, established as a base. It was a so-called base camp. We don't know when or where they might come in again, so let's continue scouting the surroundings, centering on this. Not just me, but you two as well. Us? Gray and Esil were taken aback. They will help too. The shadow goblins wandered around and started scouting. They looked like bandits plundering a village, but they were on Suho's side. His goal was to witness the sight of new goblins reappearing in the Shadow Dungeon. Considering the existence of daily quests, it was certain that they would come in again before the day ended. Okay, I got help, so I have to pay for the meal. Esil unconsciously licked her lips as she answered. Thanks to Suho, she was able to eat for the first time in a while. But the hunger she had been struggling with for a long time could not be resolved overnight, because goblins don't taste good, although the quantity is large. She suddenly looked to the side and saw Gray also making the same expression. What? Esil felt conflicted because she felt like she was on the same level as the little one. Are you sure you want to exit the Shadow Dungeon? Suho left the Shadow Dungeon with Esil and Gray. Even though I caught so many goblins, I only leveled up once. In order to become stronger, he had to enter a stronger dungeon. Suho now had many options. One is to blackmail Rakan's sword and look for the location of the new sanctuary. But Rakan's sword didn't know everything. He said he would let Suho know when he sensed signs of a new sanctuary. The second is to find a Stardust factory somewhere and hunt demons. Suho has no clue on that at all. And the third, just Magok. I'd better go there first. Magok Village, Gangseo District. Originally, the area was called Magok because it produced a lot of hemp. But a year ago, ever since the worst dungeon break ever occurred, people have been calling the area Magok, or Demonland. Since then, Magok has been designated as one of the most dangerous field dungeons in Korea, and civilians have stopped visiting. Gwanaksan Field and Seoul Station Field were both created a year ago. Magok Field was also created just a year ago. It was suspicious. Looking back at what had happened, Suho was sure that Magok was involved in some way. Let's go. The bus door opened and Suho walked out. He arrived near Magok using public transportation. Even though the world has become like this, the trains and buses were still running well, so it became a more bizarre world. Only a few steps from an extremely ordinary civilized city, a hell road infested with demonic beasts suddenly unfolds. Even at that moment, the hunters were diligently attacking and purifying those areas. But at the same time, a new gate was opening somewhere. This place. As they got closer to Magok, Baru's eyes became serious. The fields of Magok that stretched out beyond were a jungle with blue mist and dense forest. It's a place where you can feel the dangerous energy just by looking at it. Of course, it's not dangerous at all to me. Baru seriously boasted about himself and tilted his head. Young master, why is there no barbed wire here? Like Gwanaksan Field or Seoul Station Field, most of the field dungeons were surrounded by long barbed wire to prevent the monsters from coming out. However, when they arrived in Magok, they could not see such barbed wire anywhere. This place is too wide to be surrounded by barbed wire, and barbed wire is meaningless in the first place. Why? Most of the monsters here are plant-type monsters, so they can't come out anyway. Plant-type monsters couldn't root in the land without blue mist. It was truly fortunate for the people of Earth. If it wasn't for that, the plants in the dungeon would have covered the Earth a long time ago. It's a really fun place. Beru looked at the scenery of Magok with an interesting expression. Suho said they were plant-type monsters, but Beru sensed signs of other beings. Young master, isn't this field occupied by another guild? Not to my knowledge. I searched on the internet, but I found nothing. As it turned out, Magok Field was a hunting ground open to all hunters. It was because it was very troublesome to manage for guilds if the place was plant-type monsters infested. Also, they could make money by selling the corpses of the monsters, but the plant-type monsters don't cost much. Since they say they are still researching, no one knows what will happen later. It was an area that hasn't received the attention of hunters yet. Besides, there are ghosts here. Are you talking about ghosts? Beru became more excited. By ghost, he didn't mean a ghost from a horror movie. Ghost monster. In this forest, there were not only plant-type monsters, but also ghost-type monsters that couldn't be obtained no matter how hard anyone tries. So it was only natural that the hunters hated this place. There's no money there, but I am different, because experience is more important than demon corpses. The moment Suho had set foot on Magok Field, "It's a sanctuary," the Rakan's sword suddenly told Suho. Suho immediately pulled out Rakan's sword and held it. What? A sanctuary? Yeah, this area is full of the energy of the sanctuary. It seems that this dense forest and blue mist were preventing the energy of the sanctuary from flowing out. Beru looked at Suho. There could be an artifact similar to Rakan's sword somewhere around here. Or there could be a boss mob like Brokey. Whichever of the two comes out, it would be beneficial. Right. Whether it's an artifact, it's an item, a boss mob, or a shadow soldier with experience. Suho looked at the dense jungle with a glimmer in his eyes. The combination of the jungle and ghosts was too much of a bother for hunters. Suho had a sanctuary-limited navigation. He raised Rakan's sword forward. Do you know where it is? This way. Rakan's sword moved the tip of his sword, pointing to the center of the sanctuary. Suho ventured into the jungle with Rakan's sword at the forefront. Suho wasn't the only one exploring Magok Field. Vice President, it's already the second day. How long are we going to be here? Rather than it being difficult, we need to know exactly the schedule and purpose. The hunters of the Baiko Guild had been wandering the jungle aimlessly for 2 days already. The reason was Baek Miho, Vice President of the Baiko Guild, who is now leading them. However, no one dared to express their dissatisfaction with her. Baek Yunho, the president of the Baiko Guild, was out of the country. Baek Miho, the vice president and daughter of Baek Yunho, was pretty similar to her father. Someone keeps calling me. Baek Miho has been hearing strange hallucinations for some time now. Prove your qualifications. The voice spoke out of nowhere. Prove your qualifications. At first she thought it was just hallucinations. However, the voice grew louder and louder as time passed, and eventually led Baek Miho to this place in Magok. What the hell is going on here? What kind of qualifications do I have to prove? Baek Miho was equally frustrated. It was clear that there was something. The moment she stepped into the jungle, she stopped hearing things. Right then, the hunters who saw Baek Miho's face trembled. The vice president's eyes, vertically slit pupils. Suddenly, Baek Miho's eyes were shining yellow, like those of an animal. The eyes of the beast. The beast transformation skill made her like that. Even though only a fraction of power was revealed, the pressure was enormous. Prove your qualifications. Has it started again? The voice returned to Baek Miho's brain. However, the contents were slightly different from before. Prove your qualifications to become the king. Baek Miho took off the hair tie she was wearing on her wrist and tied her hair. With the beast's eyes, she glared fiercely in the direction the voice came from. Everyone, be ready for battle. Chapter 32. Prove your qualifications to become the king. Suho's senses sensed an abnormality taking place in the forest. The forest was agitated. Suho stopped walking and looked at Rakan's sword. Did you just say that? It's not me. Does the voice sound the same? It has to be. It was said by a being just like me in this sanctuary. Suho tilted his head. Are they the same as you? Yes. You probably didn't think that the king of beasts, the Fang Monarch Rakan, would only have one fang, right? Usually 4. 2. It means that there are only 2 fangs made of holy material. As Suho stared at him, Rakan's sword hurriedly defended himself. I don't know if I said it, but to be precise, I'm Rakan's baby tooth. Baby teeth are those that fall out during adolescence. I am the one who received the tooth that Rakan lost as he grew up, and made it into a sacred object for the lower tribes. Since the fangs I received back then were two, the holy relics were also two. Then again, the voice penetrated Suho's brain. Prove your qualifications to be the king, Suho asked again. Then what the hell is this asking if I'm worthy to be king? At that time, the lower tribes created me in hopes that a future monarch would be born from them. But now that Rakan is dead, it's finally time to elect a new king. The so-called trial of the king has begun. Oh. Suho was then tempted to ask, so you're saying that if I pass the test, I can become the Fang Monarch too? Of course it is possible. If you want to be a beast. Beast? They were going to elect the king of beasts. Shouldn't the candidate be prepared to become a beast? I kind of hate that. At Suho's disgusted expression, Rakan's sword giggled and continued. So in the first place, you're not qualified. And that voice is not talking to you either. It's just a notice scattered throughout this sanctuary. Young master. Just in time, Baru, who was flying around and scouting, returned to Suho. There are other hunters roaming around this field besides us. Each of them look. Listening to Vare's words, Suho stepped on a tree branch and jumped high. From there, he looked down in the direction the commotion was coming from. An interesting sight was unfolding there. Strangeness appeared in Suho's eyes. They're choosing the king of the beasts. Everyone was using the beast transformation skill. I guess this is what it means. All over the forest, fighter hunters who fought by changing part, or all of their bodies like beasts, were fighting. There was one with wings like an eagle on his back. There was also a person who became furry like a bear and grew in size. It was really diverse. Prove your qualifications to be the king. Each and everyone were fighting an entire forest, steeped in madness to prove their worth. Anyway, the holy relics here seem to have gathered all the beasts qualified to be king. It was then. Suho suddenly felt a presence under his feet, and immediately turned around and jumped off the tree branch. Surprisingly, it was the tree itself that attacked Suho. Tree trunk? Even while jumping to the ground, countless tree trunks attacked Suho like a whip. Ruler's power. The ruler's power was not enough to lift Suho's weight. However, it was possible to double jump, stepping on the air momentarily and leaping again. Suho did somersaults avoiding the whip vines and landed safely on the ground. The battle began in earnest. Plant-type monsters started attacking Suho from all sides. Suho grabbed Rakan's sword and Vulcan's horns with both hands and hacked them to pieces. Prove your qualifications to be the king. In the meantime, the voice continues to be heard. Suho felt conflicted. No, I don't have the qualifications, so why are you making me take the test? It's a matter of timing. It was because you entered the sanctuary and was caught up in the trial of the king's ordeal. Or perhaps the ordeal has just begun because I, a holy relic, have entered this place. So that holy relic is the problem in the first place. Suho decided to think simply. It's a test, and so we start looking for the examiner. Find it and destroy it. Who dares to test young master? Baru's eyes shone insidiously. This way. The direction Rakan's sword had been pointing to was the place where the examiner was. Suho continued to cut down the plant-type monsters and ran to the place where the other holy relic was. The deeper the jungle, the thicker the blue mist. At first glance, it gave off a dreamlike feeling, but it was the beginning of a nightmare. The ghost is coming. The hunters, who were being tested for their qualifications as kings, hurriedly alerted their surroundings. The chilling sound of the wind was blowing everywhere. In fact, plant-type monsters aren't very strong if you look at them individually. However, if you look at the forest as a whole, the risk level changes. Regardless of whether the class is E or S, hunters are also human beings made of flesh and blood. If a sharp tree trunk suddenly flies in and pierces the throat or heart, life can be lost in vain. The forest was full of such creepy assassins everywhere. In addition, now ghosts have been added. This is why this field is not popular. I know, there is only risk and nothing to be gained. Until last year there was a big city here. It boasted a huge floating population. Not only because it was home to a large number of people, but also because it had a sizable business district. But one day, the gate suddenly opened in the said area, and a catastrophe occurred. Many died, and those who were lucky enough to survive lost their livelihoods. The ghosts of the dead still haunted the land. Damn it, it's Banshee? Everybody cover your ears! The ghost species beast Banshee. Banshee's wailing is disorienting. It was the worst for the hunters who were already wandering in the jungle. Besides, all the hunters there now had their hearing developed, using the beast transformation skill. In the end, there were even a number of people who vomited. Prove your qualifications to be the king? A voice that whips them even at this moment. When the voice stuck in their heads while temporarily losing sight and hearing, the hunters finally realized the truth of this test. I get it. There was a smell calling them from somewhere. It was the smell of magic that could only be felt by maximizing wildness. Right, it was a smell. Hunters focused all their nerves on their sense of smell. But there was a tree trunk that squeezed through that gap. As they tore the vines stuck in their thighs, their eyes were blazing wildly. I must find it. I'll find it and become the king. Not knowing who could become the king, they were blindly taking the test as if possessed by something. Something is off. Bike Miho suddenly stopped walking. The Baiko Guild hunters who were following her made puzzled expressions. Vice President, what's the problem? Bike Miho looked somewhat displeased. Even in this chaotic situation, the eye of the beast was watching from far away. She already knew that there were quite a few other hunters roaming around in this forest. They were also in the process of moving competitively to find the same place, using the beast transformation skill like herself. Bek Miho having a wild nature is just the same. From the moment she stopped walking, she felt something, saying that this was not the time. That part touched Bek Miho's pride. I feel like I'm being played by someone. I don't like it. Huh? What do you mean by that? For now, our Baiko Guild will retreat from this mysterious test. Her sudden declaration shocked the members of the guild. When they entered the forest yesterday, they couldn't understand why the vice president had gone there. After the king's trial began, the worries disappeared. They don't know what awaits at the end of the test, but the power of the word king spurred their desire. However, Bek Miho suddenly stepped on the brakes and stopped their momentum. It makes me feel dirty to be seduced by such unknown desires, as if I had become a real beast. It's not like I'm a dog in heat that gets swayed by some kind of pheromone. Bike Miho clicked her tongue and even glared with the eyes of the beast. Are we going back now? No, it was a no-brainer to fight with others without knowing the purpose. But she wanted to see with her own eyes who would be the final winner. Move and search high terrain with an open view. All right, the subordinates follow her decision without any words. But then there was a group of werewolves who appeared in front of the guild while moving past through the bush. In an instant, Bek Miho's eyes changed when she recognized their identity. The Baiko Guild was the most famous guild in Korea for its beast transformation skill. As a result, they had separate lists of hunters with beast transformation skills from other guilds. The purpose was, of course, to offer a scout someday. So she was well aware of the identities of the werewolves she encountered. The remnants of the Hyena Guild. They said that there were some guys who hadn't been caught by the police yet, and it seemed that they too were enticed by the king's trial and came into the forest. However, the problem was that their nature was evil, and they understood the king's test better than anyone else, as they had served Brokey for a long time. There is only one king. The moment they accidentally encountered Baiko Guild, the werewolves showed their teeth. They launched an attack without hesitation. Kill them! The Baiko Guild was the most likely candidate for the title of king. If they don't get killed now, they will take the throne. However, the blatant intent to kill by the werewolves rather awakened the wildness that Bek Miho had been barely suppressing. One-day-old puppies who don't even know what they're doing. At that moment, her hair tie broke off. Bike Miho's hair, which protruded like a lion's mane, was bleached white. Beasts! Half human and half beast. Bek Miho's claws, revealing her true power, rip off the heart of the leading werewolf. Prove your qualifications to be the king. Huh? A voice seemed to rejoice at the slaughter made by Bek Miho. Kill more! Those who survive to the end are truly strong. Was it like this? Bike Miho realized what that voice really wanted. It's a battle royale. She didn't really like it, forcing people to kill each other. In addition, because of the 5 senses maximized by the beast transformation skill, screams of dying and killing could be heard from all over the forest. A battle royale was already taking place elsewhere. I really don't like it. Bike Miho gnashed her teeth with a disapproving expression while fighting the Hyena Guild members. All of a sudden, she noticed a person walking far away. His carefree appearance, walking around with 2 swords in each hand, was so foreign to her. Why is that person alone? Could it be that he killed all of his teammates and survived alone? If so, he was the worst human being. Blinded by the king's power, he even killed his comrades. But he doesn't smell like blood. Didn't he kill someone? Then why is he alone? Bek Miho kept glancing at him even while fighting. He kept walking until she could no longer see him. Chapter 33. There are more people with beast transformation skills than I thought. Far from other hunters, Suho was crossing the jungle without hesitation. Of course, numerous specters appeared in front of him and attacked. Everywhere, tree trunks contaminated with magic were relentlessly seeking lives. Banshee used skill wailing. You lose your sense of direction for 10 minutes. Ghost Banshee howled overhead, disturbing Suho. Ruler's power! Suho's invisible hand reached out and grabbed Banshee's neck and snapped it. You have killed Banshee. Skill. Wailing has been cancelled. You shouldn't cry. Santa doesn't give presents. Suho smirked and killed Banshee. The ghosts infesting the place were all taken care of at once. Suho's twin swords turned like windmills. Use skill Bladestorm. You have killed a specter. You have killed a specter. You have killed a specter. Bladestorm is very useful in battles with bunch enemies. However, even after catching so many specters, there was no sign of his level rising. I just need to catch more. He had no choice but to catch them all to move forward anyway. Use skill Bladestorm. Use skill Bladestorm. You have killed a specter. You have killed a specter. The days when mana ran out with just one storm cut were a thing of the past. If it was the same now, he could use it 8 times. But something was strange. I don't level up even after catching this much? It felt like he did not gain any experience at all. Could there be more? Suho's eyes explored the surroundings. His increased sensory stats now had the same senses as beast hunters. There. Suho found the place where he felt the most dangerous energy in the complex jungle. He immediately turned and started running towards it. Where are you going? Rakan's sword asked. Let's stop by there for a while. It was slightly different from the direction to the holy relic, but it wasn't quite the opposite, so it was enough to stop by briefly on the way. What is this again? Suho found a bizarre-looking tree. Wraith tree. A ghost tree? It is a sacred tree that protects the sanctuary. Rakan's sword recognized it. Sacred? This? Suho raised his head and looked up at the tree. Rather than being sacred, it was a mysterious tree that looked haunted. Just then, even at that moment, new ghosts were growing, like fruits from the twisting branches of the wraith tree. It's like a ghost tree that grew up sucking the corpses of people who died on this land. Beru explained. As expected, there was a separate main body. That's why no matter how many ghosts he caught, he didn't level up. He seemed to have found the right one. Suho smirked and launched Rakan's sword into the air with the ruler's power. Then he raised Vulcan horn and mercilessly struck the side of the wraith tree. A great roar erupted. But the wraith tree was still standing there. Is it because it has a high defense? Let's see who wins. Suho gritted his teeth and began striking the wraith tree. It was then. Evil red shadows attacked Suho. Suho quickly fell back and hit their claws with his sword. Dungeon Jackal. The Dungeon Jackal. The Dungeon Jackals who landed on the floor surrounded Suho from the front and rear to prevent him from escaping. They were already looking at Suho as prey. As befits the guys who guard the trees that protect the sanctuary, the atmosphere felt different from the typical Dungeon Jackals. That made it even more interesting. Great, you guys will be of some use. Suho was exuding explosive energy from his entire body. The title Wolfslayer buff effect is activated. All stats increase by 40% when dealing with beast-type monsters. Dungeon Jackals instinctively lowered their stance. The prey, which seemed weaker than them just a moment ago, suddenly burst out with the intimidation of a predator. Suho swung his sword at the Dungeon Jackals who were attacking at the same time. Shadow Jackal level 1. Basic class. Shadow Jackal level 1. Basic class. Shadow Magicians shimmering with black energy. Beru, who was riding on top of them, nodded with a haughty expression. Yes, from now on, serve as a loyal dog that protects young master. This is why we lost the war. A low voice came from Rakan's sword. Suho ignored the voice and was diligently cutting the side of the wraith tree. Numerous specters jumped to hinder Suho, but the Shadow Jackals reliably guarded his back. Suddenly a groaning voice was heard. Why are they protecting the intruder instead? Whose side are you on? That wasn't me. It seemed that someone was watching Suho from afar. And finally, that's it. With a loud noise, the enormous wraith tree fell backwards. You have destroyed the wraith tree. The ghosts around disappear. Your level increased. I leveled up right away? Suho's eyes widened. He leveled up just from cutting down a tree. Suho's eyes quickly searched the surroundings. He climbed up a nearby tree and checked the situation elsewhere from that view. Ghosts were still roaming around and attacking the hunters far away. There's not just one ghost tree. Suho's eyes flashed, and that location would be best known to insiders. Lead ahead. At Suho's command, the Shadow Jackals took the lead and ran to the second wraith tree. The sound of something collapsing was heard. What? Baek Miho already dealt with all the Hyena Guild members and looked around. She turned her head in the direction of the roar. Is that where the man went earlier? She felt as though the ghosts around her had suddenly decreased slightly. No, it's not just a feeling. It definitely decreased. About 1/3. Thanks to that, she could have some spare time. Baek Miho looked back at the Hyena Guild members she had defeated to gather information. Most of them died, but only one was bloodied and tied up. Baek Miho asked, while looking at his fear-stricken eyes, with her vertically split eyes of the beast. Do you want to live? I want to live, the werewolf desperately replied. Then prove it. Why should I let you live? What? Tell me everything you know. When Baek Miho revealed her teeth, the werewolf felt like it was prey in front of a predator. Then Monarch? Black Miho made a strange expression. She didn't expect much. But surprisingly, the value of the information the werewolf gave was great. Are you saying that a king who ruled over the beasts existed? Yes, but the king died a long time ago and the throne is now said to be vacant. So is this a fuss about choosing a new king? That's right, we also suddenly heard auditory hallucinations, so we rushed here. The werewolf, who didn't want to die like his other colleagues, confided in the information he knew. In fact, the hyena guild members thought that only they could hear the hallucinations. They thought that because they were awakeners who drank the blood of the canine clan, they were qualified to become king. But when they got there, that wasn't the case. Any hunter with the power of a beast deserved to be king. And all of them were rushing and fighting. King... Black Miho was lost in thought for a moment. Of course, it would be a lie if she'd say she wasn't greedy. Even at that moment, the hallucinations asking to prove her qualifications were stimulating her desire. Prove your qualifications to be the king. But it's also suspicious. No matter how much she thought about it, she couldn't imagine that the monsters would have approached humans with a good intention. How much more if they would choose their king from among humans? That's interesting. Black Miho sneered and folded her arms. It was also right not to step up. However, she wondered what results this test would eventually come to. Actually, she was kind of scared. What kind of scheme are the demon beasts here plotting under the pretext of having a king's trial? My father was away at a time like this. Baek Miho sighed as he remembered her father, Baek Yunho. In fact, if they were to choose the king of beasts among real humans, there would be no one more qualified than Baek Yunho, an S-class hunter. But there was something she was sure of. If my father were here, he would have made the same decision as me. Prove your qualifications to be the king? It's really noisy. Even at this moment, Baek Miho's head was pounding because of the voice that stimulated her desire. Kill more. Right then. Again, like before, she heard the sound of something collapsing somewhere. A strange thing happened. The one who survives until the end? Whoa, please stop. Huh? What's going on? The voice that had been heard on repeat all of a sudden sounded annoyed. All the hunters in the forest, including Baek Miho, raised their heads in bewilderment. Even the werewolf who was begging Baek Miho for his life perked up his ears with a puzzled face. The auditory hallucinations that they had been hearing repeatedly all along then stopped. Suddenly, the number of ghosts decreased by half. What happened? I hope the king's trial is over. Of course not. After a while, the hallucinations resumed as if nothing had happened. Prove your qualifications to be a king? Stop, just please. Now there is only one tree left. What the hell is going on? Chapter 34. The holy relic was genuinely perplexed. An uninvited guest came to the king's trial and was messing around. Wraith tree. It grows by absorbing the spirits that died in that land. There were a total of 3 trees guarding the sanctuary. Now there is only one left. That remaining tree was also being destroyed terribly by the uninvited guest. Stop! Please stop! The power of the sanctuary, the king's trial! Suho let the screams of the holy object go to the back of his ear. The shadow jackals were guarding him with a proud and upright posture like guard dogs. As long as I destroy this, I will level up again. Unfortunately, he didn't level up when he destroyed the second wraith tree. This was because the higher the level, the more required experience points. It was something he was sure of. Suho moved faster. Unlike Suho, who was excited, the other holy relic kept begging earnestly in his head. This can't be. That's the last ghost tree. Imagine how diligently I nurtured that tree. I can't hear. I can't hear anything. Listen. Don't interfere with the king's trial. Something you don't qualify for. Suho suddenly stopped. Qualified. Suho raised his head and smiled faintly. He moved toward the holy relic that he must be watching somewhere. You weren't going to pick a real king anyway. What's the problem? All that came back was silence. Suho already knew about it a long time ago. He was certain because he already had Rakan's sword. Aren't you planning on taking over the body of a human who survived until the end anyway? The Rakan's sword initially wanted to take away the body of a lowly human and possess it. But this time the standard of the other holy relic was royal status. No matter how much humans on Earth try to fly and crawl, there's no way they'll ever be satisfied with something like being a Fang Monarch. Just in time, Suho destroyed the last wraith tree. You have destroyed the wraith tree. All the ghosts disappear. Your level increased? All the ghosts in Magok Field disappeared. A heavy silence fell over the forest. At the end of that suffocating silence, the holy relic finally opened its mouth. You know me too well. Who are you? It was a question for Suho. However, the heavy sense of intimidation in that voice made all the hunters in the Magok Field nervous. The forest was howling. Even the ground shook as if it would collapse. What is this? What is going on? As an unusual earthquake began to occur, the hunters in the forest turned pale. Suho smiled and asked Rakan's sword in his hand, "Do you think the holy relic here is stronger than you?" "No way, you must have found a beansprout." The sarcastic voice of Rakan's sword was obvious. But it was better. It found someone worthy of being a real king. Gray, now in the Shadow Dungeon, was the only descendant of the Canine clan. Even though he became Suho's pet, that didn't matter too much. It was already convinced that Gray would grow into a stronger monarch by being by Suho's side. "Do you know the reason for the existence of the holy relic?" "What?" "To prove the qualifications of the king by competing with each other's chosen successor." Rakan's sword moved the tip of the sword, pointing back in the direction of the other relic. "Go that way. Go to him and prove that you are more worthy." Instead of answering, Suho turned his gaze to the shadow jackals. "Jackal, take me!" The shadow jackal quickly approached and carried Suho on his back. Then, it started running through the dense forest at a blinding speed. The closer they got to the source of the earthquake, the denser the forest became. Plant-type monsters of various colors were everywhere. Until now, no hunters would have reached that far. It was extremely dangerous with no money to gain. "The plants here are full of life. They have already tasted human blood." Baru's words were true. Magok massacre. The fundamental reason why this land has turned into such a terrible jungle, it was because the location where the gate opened was quite bad. Magok is home to the largest and most extensive botanical garden in Seoul. The gate to the other world opened in the middle of the said garden. Blue mist flowed out of it and permeated the various vegetation, then achieved a bizarre evolution. This place has turned into hell. If this was an ordinary mountain like Gwanaksan, it would have been a little different. The types of vegetation growing on the mountain would not have been as diverse as those in the botanical garden. If only this place hadn't been downtown. Monsters tainted with magic wouldn't have eaten so many humans in the city and evolved into something more grotesque. The result of all that bad luck was right there. Magok Botanical Garden. In the place where the botanical garden was originally located, a strange giant tree wriggled as if it were alive. Suho narrowed his eyes and looked closely at the giant tree, and soon recognized its identity. Is this a tree? It wasn't a tree. Thousands of plant species that grew in the botanical garden were intertwined with each other and wrapped together, taking the form of a giant tree. "It's a nest for the king," Rakan's sword said. "The other relic has grown the sanctuary this much. I have no choice but to admit this one thing." It was then. Wow! Suddenly, the door of the botanical garden, covered by numerous vines, opened wide in front of Suho. "Let's go in." "Young master, it may be a trap." The corner of Suho's mouth went up at Baru's concern. "If it's a trap, we just have to break through." With two swords in both hands, Suho stepped into the entrance. Entered the dungeon. Suho entered the botanical garden dungeon. After that, the vines wrapped around the passage again to seal the door. The garden was quiet and dark. It is pitch black without a single point of light. Suho maximized his senses and adapted to the darkness. To secure more visibility, he put item Crow Mask on his face. A lot more became visible. Spider web. "Whoa, see this?" Suho smiled and looked around. The whole place was wrapped in a pure white spider web. Was this a trap? Large and small spider beasts crawling on the web were glaring at the intruder. Grave Spider, Grave Spider. A grave. That was a very fitting name. They were already guests who got there before Suho. While he was handling the wraith tree, the beast hunters first smelled the place. Oops! They were all hanging, entwined in spider webs. As Suho got inside, those among them whose mouths weren't covered screamed desperately. "Save me. Please let us go." "They are sacrifices for the king." Listening to Rakan's sword, Suho glared into the deep darkness far away. A huge spider was crouching there. Body the size of a house. Dozens of eyes. Ugly mouth. Pair of giant claws. Grave Spider Arachne. It was an enormous and intimidating spider. "I can feel the energy of the Holy Spirit in that monster's body." Suho's eyes narrowed. "Then I'll have to cut him open and get it out." Suho didn't waste any time and immediately jumped out towards the monster. Grave spiders poured down from the walls and ceiling towards Suho. "Take care of the small ones!" At Suho's command, the shadow jackals jumped up and struck the grave spiders. They tore the spiders apart with their strong claws and killed them with their teeth. "You have killed a grave spider. You have killed a grave spider. You have killed a grave spider." Numerous messages appeared simultaneously. Suho ignored them all and just ran forward. He only has one goal. The Arachne spewed white spider webs towards Suho. Two swords swung. Use skill Bladestorm. The spider's web was torn by the raging sword strike. A giant spider appeared. Its huge pincer slammed down from above Suho's head. If he hadn't turned his body instinctively, it would have been crushed. The spider that smashed the stone floor rose up again. Suho's eyes widened. "Come again!" He turned around and dodged the attack. Dodged again. The monster was enraged. Countless smashes were pouring in. It felt like fighting an excavator at a construction site. But, seeing? No feeling. Using items to increase his sensory stats, Suho's ability to detect danger has gotten a lot better. He dodged the attacks one by one and gradually closed the distance between him and the monster. He hit its leg with the Rakan sword. Suho went to the other side of the monster, who was staggering from the impact, and once again attacked with the Vulcan's horn. Suho's twin swords began attacking non-stop. The level of skill double swords has risen. The monster howled at the continuous attack. There's no way. No matter how hard you try, you will eventually become my prey. A voice coming from inside its body echoed. Was that not enough? Its skin is quite thick, but it doesn't matter. Even if it had a strong defense, Suho thought he could just keep on attacking. I'm your food? Sounds funny. Suho smiled. You are my prey. He was already excited, thinking of killing this guy and using him as a shadow soldier. Use skill Bladestorm. Chapter 35. It was an endless attack. Effect Fatal Wound is activated. An option appeared for Rakan's sword. A special effect with a 15% chance of inflicting more than twice as much critical damage was activated. That was just the beginning. Effect Fatal Wound is activated. Effect Fatal Wound is activated. As the number of Suho's attacks accumulated, the critical hits continued to increase. In the end, the monster couldn't stand the force and broke one of its leg. Arachne screamed and staggered. Suho did not miss that opportunity. He jumped on the broken leg and went on the monster's back. Holding the two swords, he stabbed them into the hard shell of the monster. To be precise, in the joint that can be seen between the shells. Green blood splattered and screams erupted. Arachne struggled wildly to get Suho off its body and hit the wall here and there. However, the more it did, the more persistently Suho clung to its back and stabbed his sword deeply into it. Right then, the Grave Spider Arachne uses skill Puppet Show. The Grave Spider Arachne uses skill Puppet Show. On its back! Suho instinctively turned over and jumped high. Then a sharp attack cut through the space where Suho was, landing on the Arachne's back again. Suho turned his head to confirm the identity of the attackers. Sorry, our bodies are moving on their own. The hunters, whose limbs were wrapped in spider webs, were attacking Suho unwillingly. They said they were puppets. The bodies of people hanging from the walls and ceiling were forcibly controlled by spider webs floating in the air. The movements were bizarre, like that of a zombie. Baru! Suho screamed, while clinging onto Arachne's back, swaying here and there. Baru suddenly showed up. Yes, did you call me? That was all he could ask. Baru had taken a step back from the battle, fearing that he would steal Suho's experience points. Conversely, there was no reason not to participate in battle, as long as it didn't take away experience points. Baru turned his head and howled ferociously at the hunters attacking Suho. What kind of bugs dare to disturb young master's great crusade? Baru's claws ripped the webs apart at an incredible speed. Please save us! The hunters were startled and started screaming. Oh? The cobwebs tying them all together snapped. At that moment, the bodies of the hunters floating in the air plummeted to the floor like puppets with strings cut off. Hunters landed on their buttocks and whined in pain. Their gazes followed Suho and their eyes widened. Crazy. An absurd sight was unfolding. Suho was ripping off Arachne's shell with his bare hands. If its defense is high, I just can tear off its shield. Strength 51. The tendon in his forearm swelled like it was about to burst. Sweat poured down. Suho continued as the monster struggled. He was barely enduring everything. Right then, daily quest. He took out the reward he had been saving for this very moment. The following rewards are prepared. Reward 1, status recovery, unchecked. Accept the reward. A refreshing energy swirled around, and his condition returned to its best form. Great. Suho smirked and put more strength into his grip. But it still was not enough. More strength. Suho instinctively came up with a way to fill the lack of strength. Ruler's power. The invisible hand floating in the air momentarily overlapped Suho's right arm. Just like back then, when he blew away team leader Han Jae-hyuk of the Hunters Association with Ruler's power. Dark energy penetrated into Suho's arm. In the end, the largest shell came off like a crab shell. Underneath, Arachne's flesh was exposed. Suho punched his fist straight in. You have learned skill, strike level 1. Arachne's heavy body was crushed in half. You have defeated Arachne, the Grave Spider. Your level increased. Your level increased. Arachne collapsed without even screaming. Stepping on the body, Suho's hand pulled out the holy relic that was parasitic in the body. Item Rakan's sword 2 has been obtained. A sword that looked exactly like Rakan's original fangs came out of Suho's hand. Even their personalities were similar. Who dares covet the king's sword? An evil voice echoed in Suho's brain. I'll possess your body! Red energy radiated from the sword and attacked Suho. Then, a shadow rose from under Suho's feet and swallowed the sword. The red aura that had been attacking vigorously faded. What is this energy? Could you be the Shadow Monarchs? You guys, shouldn't you change your common statements already? Suho smiled as he spoke to Rakan's sword 1. Done! Suddenly, the two relics, fangs of Rakan, resonated with each other. Item: Rakan's fang recognizes each other. Sanctuary of Beasts is activated. The system messages started appearing in front of Suho one after another. You have learned the passive skill Unknown. Passive skill Unknown is activated. A passive skill was added in the skill information window. Skill: Passive skill Unknown, Lovich Max. What is this? Suho expressed some doubts about the unexpected situation. His shadow spread in all directions. Time stopped. What is this place? Suho looked around. A world of complete blankness. He stood alone at the edge of the empty horizon while wearing a crow mask. The Rakan's swords in his hand were also missing. Beru. Suho tried to call Beru, but no voice came out of his mouth. Is it a dream? He suddenly heard a voice. You are not in your dream. Suho opened his eyes wide and looked ahead. At the end of the empty horizon, he saw a man looking at him. A giant man that looks well over 2 meters. The wild-looking man was dressed in clothes made of animal skin. No, he wasn't wild-looking, but simply wild in nature. Nice to meet you. You are his descendant. The man smiled at Suho, revealing his sharp fangs. Who are you? My name is Rakan, an eternal specter that was killed by the Shadow Monarch. He answered Suho's question. A system message popped up in front of Suho. The King of Beasts, Fang Monarch, is watching you. Suho opened his eyes wide. Suddenly, the man felt a tremendous presence. Bear? Tiger? Lions? Sharks? Crocodiles? Venomous snakes? What predator in the world can radiate such an overwhelming sense of intimidation? King, Suho realized. He was the true king of beasts, Suho realized just now. In Suho's field of vision, the man's silhouette grew larger and larger. He could finally see everything. Behind the man in human form, a huge snow-white wolf was looking down on him. Can you see my true self? It is indeed a mysterious skill. Rakan, the great wolf, was intrigued. Well, to the extent that you have summoned me. I was only wandering in the world of emptiness. Is this level of ability natural? I called you? Suho made a puzzled expression. Right. I don't know how, but you woke me up. Because of that, my soul, which was in eternal rest, dreamt of you. Dream? Yes, this is my dream. Rakan chuckled and looked around. There's nothing. Rakan suddenly burst into laughter. It was a really empty laugh. Is this normal? Originally, the dead do not dream. Hence, this dream of his was also empty. Isn't it really fun? Those were the words of the Fang Monarch, who killed and trampled so many beasts in his lifetime. He turned his eyes to Suho again and realized, a young human has inherited the power of the Shadow Monarch. That small, weak human child was the only spectacle in his empty dream. Rakan's gaze at Suho deepened. From now on, you will be my only pleasure. The corner of Rakan's mouth went up. When a monarch dies, he falls into eternal rest. It was a world of emptiness, where all selves disappeared, and there was no dream. But that wasn't the case now. The King of Beasts, Fang Monarch, is watching you. The same message as before appeared. From now on, I will be able to watch your life through dreams. I'm really looking forward to it. Suho frowned at Rakan's words. You can spy on me? Why? Why are you asking me that? In the first place, I was only called by your power. My power? He remembered the new skill called Unknown that he acquired. Rakan laughed at Suho's unsatisfactory reaction and continued. Don't worry. I can't see every moment of you. The only time I can look into you is when you use my power. If it's your power, are you referring to Rakan's sword? That's right. Ah, I can see you when you are with my descendant. Gray? Yeah, you gave him that name. Thank you for keeping my descendant without killing him. This will add joy to my empty rest. Rakan smiled at what came to his mind. Soon, a mysterious light emanated from his huge body. That light came down to Suho. The King of Beasts, Fang Monarch, blessed you. Suho looked at the light covering his body with a puzzled expression. Prophecy, Rakan's protection is received.